Hi, and welcome to the board wrap-up for the first month of 2012, the January Board of Education meeting held recently. We've got Dr. David Pennington, our superintendent, with us as we talk about things that are going on within the Ponca City school system. And happy 2012. I know that during your board meeting you did something a little bit unusual, and that is you paid tribute to your board members, and sometimes we forget that those people devote much time and energy to our Ponca City schools.
Once a year, and really it's not just a state thing, but nationally we have a school board member recognition, and we do that in January. And I think people do forget. It is a volunteer position. Those people don't get paid anything. They commit themselves to 12 regular meetings, as many special meetings as you may need to have during a school year. In our situation, in our board, we actually have board committees that meet at least once a month. So just in regular board meetings and committee meetings, that's 24 activities that our board members have committed themselves to. In addition to that, by being on the board, they get an opportunity to hear from a lot of patrons. And school boards are not any different than Congress or city commissions or anything else. People are more likely to come and tell you what they don't like than what they do like. And so, but they make that commitment for 5 years, and I'm not sure that anybody, unless you've done that, and I've been doing this for 17 years, so I've been to a lot of board meetings, but I've never sat in their chair. I've never sat in that chair and done it as a private citizen, and so they deserve a lot of respect. One of the things that we seem to have lost in this country is the ability to respect people we disagree with, and I know that at various times, for various reasons, board members take a lot of criticism. And I guess what I would say out there to our listeners is, you may not agree with the decisions they make. You may not agree when you call to maybe complain or ask a question. You may not like the answer that you get. But I would just strongly encourage you to please respect the people that have volunteered to do this, to serve our children. From my perspective, the main responsibility of a board member is to do what's in the best interest of the kids of the community. Not of the adults, not of the teachers, not of the administrators, but what's best for those kids. And I really believe with all my heart that our board tries to do that the best they can. And again, I think they deserve a lot of kudos for taking on that responsibility.
We also would like to observe John Lee, the Certified Employee of the Month, Robert Hoke, the Support Employee of the Month, and Evans and Associates for being the January Friend of Education for our Ponca City Public Schools. A lot of things happened, at least on the agenda. I guess the first thing we could start with, though, is the enrollment update, and then you had a survey that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we generally talk about enrollment several times during the year. The bottom line of that is we have 25 more students in school in January of 2012 than we had in January of 2011. And of course, enrollment is such a big issue for us. For a lot of reasons, but primarily because really since about 2000, we've been fighting a trend of declining enrollment. And so anytime that we have more kids in school than we had the same time period the year before, we're excited about that. We actually had, from a weighted average daily membership, and I know some people tune into this show for the first time, some have been watching for the 8 years I've been here. We've talked before about how schools are funded, but they're funded based upon weighted average daily membership, and that is average daily membership, which is the number of students you have enrolled divided by the number of days that school's been in session. And then we add weights to that. The way the funding formula in Oklahoma works, we have weights. We have grade weights. A first grade student, from a weighted perspective, is worth more than a fourth grade student. A high school student is worth more than a seventh grade student. And then we have weights for students with disabilities. And then we have weights for students that are gifted. We have weights for students that are free and reduced lunch. And you add all that together and you come up with a weighted average daily membership. So for example, our weighted average daily membership, or our average daily membership in October was 5,200 students. When you add weights to that, it comes out to 8,150 students, I believe. So we actually added almost 3,000 students when you add weight to it. All that goes through a funding formula which generates money for the school district. The important thing is that from May of 2011 until October of 2011, we grew 250 weighted students. In the past, that would have generated a lot of additional money. But unfortunately, because of several factors that came into play, we only received $85,000 more dollars from the state in state aid. We're fortunate in that there were several school districts in our area that actually lost money. And again, from the viewers out there, in general, the way the funding formula is supposed to work is you get an initial allocation in July. If you have more students in October than you had in July, you get more money. If you have the same number of students or fewer students, you don't get less money. You stay where you were in July. Sometimes you may even grow a little bit, even though you have the same number of kids. You think about the last year, which was a year where we were still in the midst of a state funding crisis. We actually got $1 more per kid in December than we had in July. This year, when we got our midterm adjustment, we lost $10 a kid. Lots of reasons why that happened. Don't want to take time to bore people with that. But in my time as a superintendent, 17 years I've done this, that's the first time that our midterm allocation has decreased, except for years when we have a state budget shortfall. So that's really unusual, and I know a lot of people are probably scratching their heads, and I'm sure some schools are really scrambling right now. So we're fortunate. We at least went up a little bit, not as much as we anticipated. And that's disappointing because obviously anytime you grow, you hire more teachers and you hire more staff because we base staffing decisions on what our main numbers are. So we've hired additional teachers, we've hired additional teaching assistants, and we kind of count on the midterm adjustment to cover that additional cost. That's unfortunately not going to happen this time.
Our school system is financially, though, in good shape, correct?
Yeah, we're stable. I mean, you always want more money. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. I know that there are some that would be critical of government institutions and the money that we spend, but we always want more money. There's always lots of things that we would like to do for kids, services we would like to provide, things that we would believe would make our instruction better, help our students. Those things all cost money. And so we try to be very diligent and very protective of our school dollars. The goal in this district is to always have a fund balance of 8%. The last few years we've been consistently above that. I think probably this year we'll probably get closer to that than we've been in a long time.
Also, some very important recent legislation had you discussing the retention or the pass-fail policies at our high school. Can you tell us about that?
Well, last session the legislature passed a law that's kind of got the label, or was presented publicly as, the end of social promotion. And there's been historically a lot of discussion about students, especially students who don't read on grade level. And there's been a perception among some, kind of like an urban legend, that schools socially promote kids, that we don't retain students because we're afraid it would bruise their ego or their self-esteem or that kind of stuff. I really don't. That again, I call that an urban legend. in the past, whenever we felt like a student was not where they needed to be academically, we had a multiple step process that we went through. We looked at test scores. We looked at state exams and other types of tests that showed us their reading levels. We sat down and we visited with parents, and we generally did not retain a student if parents were not agreeable to that retention. And the reason for that is if parents aren't convinced that that's in the best interest of their child, then when that child comes back to school the next year, their chances of being successful are very limited. We have to have family support. And so, and the other thing that we've done here, we've generally have not retained a child a second time. Research is very clear that when a student is retained 2 or more years, their chances of being successful finishing high school are very, very slim. What this new law says is, regardless of the wishes of parents, and really regardless of what the school district thinks is best for the child, if they're not reading on grade level as measured by the state assessment, they have to be retained into the 3rd grade. Well, we then had to put policies in place that changed our existing policy that said now basically that the conference between parents and principals, that stuff will all take place, but if they're not reading on grade level, then your child will be retained into story. And so we'll see how that works. You know, I would think that there are going to be some parents that are not going to be very happy about this. And again, it's one of those things that, you know, when people are unhappy, they get mad at the schools, they either decide to homeschool their kids or some other things, and it's something that we didn't create. And really, I'll be honest with you, and I've told this to our members of the legislature and anybody that listens to me, I don't think this is good for kids. You know, I really think the decision about whether or not a student should be retained should be a decision made by the principal, the classroom teacher, and the parent in conjunction. We've always had the authority, and there have been times that we've retained a student even if the parent didn't want to. The way our current policy reads, that final decision rests with the Board of Education as to whether or not that student should be retained. And so in those cases where we felt the student should be retained and felt strongly enough about it, you know, we went ahead and retained them. So it's disappointing to me that the legislature has made a decision that's a blanket decision and not a decision that's based on the best in the individual needs of each child.
We're not talking about a dropout situation here. We're talking about a student that goes through the process but just isn't ready to go to the next grade level.
Yeah, and based upon a standardized test, which we do a lot of standardized testing, but you know, testing is not the end all of everything. And you know, there are, even with 3rd graders, there are developmental issues. Mm-hmm. Not everybody at the 3rd grade level is the same maturity level. And sometimes students' reading scores are developmental, not instructional. In other words, they're just not quite as ready as other kids are. And we have examples where students who we may have been concerned about in the 3rd grade, but we thought with maybe a little extra help in the 4th grade, a little bit more attention, they would be fine, and they've been fine. I mean, sometimes, you know, it would be nice if we were an assembly line, and we put those kids on an assembly line, and they just went down that line, and you know, we poured in some reading, and we poured in some math, and we poured in some history, and they went through that process, and you know, 13 years later, they came off that machine, and they were all exact. But we're just not that way as human beings, and there are some that maybe they're not doing things as well as their peers are in the 3rd grade, but they might be equal to them in the 5th grade. For some kids, it might take to the 7th grade. Now, some kids never get there. There are some kids that never get caught up, and in fact, they get further behind the longer they're in school. But it's for other reasons. It's related to to support at home and to home environment, and to whether or not they buy into what we're doing. I mean, there comes a time, all of us as parents know this, there comes a time when our children have to start doing some things for themselves. And they have to decide that they want, that learning is important to them and it's valuable to them. Not every student comes to that conclusion while they're in high school. The good thing about this country, and it's also from a school standpoint, it's also what I don't know if I'd use the word fault, but it makes it more difficult in that in America, we've made this decision that we're going to give you multiple opportunities, and we're going to let you, anytime you want to learn, we're going to make learning available to you. So if you're a high school student and maybe you're distracted, you got other things on your mind, you're not interested in school, you don't want to participate, you don't want to be there, and maybe you don't pay much attention, you just kind of barely get by, but something happens and you're 21 years old and a light comes on, and you get excited about something, and you decide to pursue that dream, either by going to career tech, joining the military, getting specialized training, going to college, and you decide then that you want to apply yourself, you have the opportunity to do that. The bad part about that is most kids know that they have opportunities, and that it's not a situation where if you don't do this at this specific time in your life, all doors are closed to you. If you don't do what you should do, it may be harder to open those doors, but at least in our country, those doors are still available to be opened. And that's a strength and it's a weakness of our system. Obviously, places where, you take a test when you're 13 years old, and if you pass that test, you go this way. If you don't pass that test, you go this way. Those kids who are 13 years old are pretty motivated in school because they know their life depends upon, and their families know that everything, their future depends upon how they do on that test when they're 13. They take another test when they're 16. They know that life decisions are made on that. Obviously, in that kind of an educational system, you have a lot of power and a lot of control. I'm not sure it's necessarily the way things ought to be, but it gives you some advantages. We don't have those here.
We talked at the board meeting about the band and orchestra with a very special April invitation, and you might go through some of that.
They're going to get to go to St. Louis
and
perform, and we're very excited about that. Every other year, our band and orchestra make a trip, and probably if you're watching this, you've probably sometime in the last few, maybe even this year, you had somebody knock on your door doing something to raise money for the band or orchestra. And or maybe you're a parent and you've worked in the concession stand, which the band parents, orchestra parents, they work in the concession stand to raise money for those programs. Well, that money goes to fund trips like this. These are great experiences for our students, an opportunity for people to hear what I consider to be the best band and the best orchestra in the state of Oklahoma perform and show what they can do. So it's a great opportunity for our kids, and they go to different places all the time. So I mean, we think it's wonderful, and for some of our kids, they've never been just out of the state of Oklahoma. So this is a great opportunity for them to do that.
Any word that you would like to pass along to your viewers on a sports-related issue, and that's our football coach?
Well, we have a committee, and that committee has met, and they have narrowed the field, and they are they're getting ready to start the interview process. I would anticipate that probably that'll take. I know they have some interviews scheduled this week. That may take maybe a 2-week process to get everybody in, get them interviewed, for the committee to have a chance to come back together and talk about the candidates they interview, and to narrow that list to 3 individuals that they'll forward on to me, and then from that list, I'll select a football coach. So we're anxious to get that person identified and get started working toward the 2012 football season. It'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, but people need to realize how delicate that situation is, because it's not just coaching, it's the teaching and the things that have to go into that decision. It's just not black and white.
Yeah, the thing they have to remember is 80% of the salary of the individual we select as our football coach will be for whatever they teach.
Right.
They're teachers first. And, what we would love to find is we'd love to find somebody that is a great teacher and a great coach. The things that make somebody successful in the classroom, I think, are very important in being successful on the football field or basketball court or wherever it is. You have to communicate with kids. You have to be able to establish a relationship with students. And you have to do that to be successful as a classroom teacher. You have to be organized. You can't teach class if you're not organized. And that includes preparation. So those things all fit hand in hand. Now, the reality is that sometimes coaches get so wrapped up in the athletic part of their jobs that maybe they don't pay as much attention to the academic part as they should. My experience has been that the people that I've worked with over the years who have been the best coaches, the most successful on the field, are people who have been extremely successful in the classroom. So we're looking for that person that has that magic with students in both areas. We had probably 35 to 40 applicants. I'm not sure exactly how many the committee has decided to interview. Of course, everybody on a resume looks good. Nobody sends a resume that has anything negative on it. A lot of legwork has to be done in checking references and making sure that we get a full story and picture of this individual. The other part of this, Phil, that I think is important, and I know sometimes the public doesn't understand, they want to know who your candidates are. Who are you going to interview? Well, we do the best we can to keep that confidential because these people have jobs. And the story I always like to remind people of is what happened with Les Miles at OSU. You remember how upset the OSU family was when they found out that maybe Les Miles might be interested in going to LSU. That same thing happens in high school football. You have somebody that, we want somebody that's successful. We want somebody who's in a job that if they're an assistant coach, we want it to be somebody that their head coach depends upon and they don't want to lose that person. If they're a head coach, we want it to be somebody that community doesn't want to see that person leave. If the worst thing that can happen to you as a coach is to interview for a job, for your community to find that out and not get it. Because what you've then told those people is, I was interested in somebody else. And sometimes it's hard to go back and mend that relationship when that happens. So we do the best we can to keep those things confidential because we just think that that's best for everybody involved. And then the other thing that happens, because of the internet today, if you're not careful and a candidate's name gets out there, if you've been in these jobs very long, if you've coached for a number of years, if you've had to make decisions, there's a chance you've made somebody mad. There's a chance maybe there's somebody who they thought their son should have played more, should have been the quarterback, but you had him at tight end or whatever it may be. And right now in the world we're in today, unfortunately, it's very easy to go online and to character assassinate somebody and not be accountable or responsible for what you say. And so, our athletic director, Dwight Winburn, has that very tough responsibility of checking references and doing the best he can to develop a full, accurate, fair picture of all candidates. And I would hate for somebody's name to become public before we've done all that, so that when or if that character assassination stuff starts, we've got a pretty good feeling of who we know exactly who that person is. Doesn't mean that everything that somebody puts on the internet is not true, because sometimes it is. But boy, it's just tough. You know, it's just tough. It's when people don't sign their names to stuff, it's just awful hard to know whether it's true or not.
And he's checking on people, but he can't really call their bosses per se,
Right.
because of the confidentiality, and everybody's entitled to that
Sure.
confidentiality that we all like, that privacy. Yeah. So
it's difficult, you know, and everybody's a little different on this. You know, I've always told my staff members that it doesn't bother me when somebody looks at another job. I mean, I'm thrilled when somebody looking at our staff members. That indicates to me that we have people. I want to have people on my staff. I want my coaches, my administrators to be individuals that other school districts want. Now, obviously, we want to keep them here, but I want them to be people. You know, why do you not want the best? I think that's always a question that we need to ask ourselves. Do we not want the best people? And if you want the best people, then you're going to have other people that want them. And so if other people want them, then you've got to find a way to do some things to make this job something that they want to keep. And so we're always trying to do that. It's not always money. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's more responsibility. Sometimes it's career path. You know, it's just a lot of things that sometimes it's just knowing that they have an administration that supports them. So, you know, but we want people that other people want to want. Now, I've always told my staff, I want them to tell me if they're really looking at a position, because I don't want to be surprised when I find out about it. I'd rather know about it. And in fact, if it's something they're really interested in, I want to know, and I'll help them. I'm more than willing to pick up the phone and call and tell somebody that, look, I've got this person, they're interested in your job. I think they would be great for you. We love them here. Hate to lose them, but you know, maybe they have family in that area. If you look at why do coaches and teachers move, more times than not it's family related. They get to be closer to family. We have several applicants that are out of state, and in most cases those are native Oklahomans who want to come home. They just want to come home. You know, they want to come back to our state. Great place to live, great place to raise a family. And they're at that time in life where they're ready to come home. Sometimes it's because they have young children and they want them to be in a community that shares the same values they do. Sometimes they have parents and they need to be closer to parents. So they have all those things that come into play.
Certainly something we'll look forward to, an announcement coming up soon.
Right.
On our football coach. Dr. Pennington, thanks. Anything else you
Yeah,
want
Phil,
to
I got one thing. I forgot to, when I talked about attendance, I didn't talk about our survey. We have, sometime in the next week or so, we're going to have there will be, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to get the word out, but there will be on our website, www.pcps.us. I drew a blank there. Ponca City Public Schools.us, PCPS.us. There will be a survey on facilities and what kind of projects do we need to focus on as we get our next bond issue prepared. We're actually conducting that survey right now with faculty and staff, and so people can look for that. But today on our website is a survey about school calendar. Again, www.pcps.us, and when the website comes up, there's a banner across that says "Vote on Calendar," and we actually have 4 calendars that have been prepared, and we're asking teachers, staff, parents to give us their feedback on which of these 4 calendars would they prefer. It doesn't mean that we're not necessarily gonna do the highest vote getter, but we'll look at that, and when we we have a calendar committee that will meet in a couple of weeks, and we'll give them the survey results as they look at the calendar. And then if you go to that website, what it tells you is kind of what the parameters are. We have to have this many days of school, we have to have this many parent-teacher conference days, this many work days. We want to finish before Memorial Day, we want to finish the first semester before Christmas, and here's a calendar, make it happen. And we even have a blank calendar if somebody wants to create their own calendar and submit it to us. We're new at this. You know, we're maybe not as sophisticated as we should be. Somebody's already pointed out to us There's nothing that prevents somebody from selecting something more than once. You know, we're doing this ourselves. We're not paying for it. So we don't have maybe some of those same professional capabilities others have. But we'll get better at this as we go along. But it's, again, it's a way as we try to use technology to try to reach out to the community and get some input from folks. Trying to involve them. We're trying to do a better job than we've ever done before of involving people in our process.
The school website.
www.pcps.us.
I just wanted to hear you say that again.
I finally got it right.
Very good. Okay, we'll look forward to that. Dr. Pennington, as we complete this month's edition of the Board Wrap-Up.
At Tulsa University, he majored in pre-med before changing to an education major, of which we're very glad you did. Coach Lee utilizes that training to inspire our students in the areas of math, science, and health. His teaching goes beyond the normal physical education instruction. He imparts values and important life lessons. Coach Lee has presented lessons on electrical safety that students put to use during one of our recent ice storms. He speaks with students on the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning and lead paint concerns existing in many of their homes. John Lee is a natural teacher of life. In May, Coach Lee is planning his retirement. He is leaving large shoes to fill. Coach Lee, we thank you for your service and dedication to the families and staff of Lincoln Elementary. Thank you very much, John Lee.
Well, in response to this, it's an honor to be able to receive this. And 35 years we've had, and I think of 1989 coming to Lincoln. That's the year my son Jeff was born. And he's a grown young man now, so it's been a few years. I look back and I think of all the kids and students that we've had here in Ponca City and the special ones that I've had. And it's a very enjoyable memory for me to think that I've had children whose parents I've had and even some grandparents. That tells you that generation after generation that comes through this system finds the ways to keep going and making something of their lives. And it's great to see the students that we've had that are now productive citizens and part of our society, even in Ponca City. And I had a chance to visit with one of them today that came back from out of town and is moving back here and opening up a business. Really enjoyed the visit with him and thought, this is what it's all about. I know that you've had these former students and they're coming back to be a part of our Ponca City community. And I thank you again. It's really an honor. Okay?
Thank you, John. Okay. Appreciate you. Thank you. And we'll let you have that.
Robert Hoke has been the head custodian at Poe High since 2004, and he handles the responsibility of maintaining such a large school with many buildings and after-hour activities with efficiency and professionalism. He is a silent soldier at Poe High in that he never asks for praise, promotions, compensation, or help, while at the same time he keeps the high school running like a fine-tuned machine. No matter what the challenge, Robert just smiles and says, "We can do it, no problem," and he does it. Thanks to his hard work and diligence, our high school remains the district's crown jewel. He is a credit to his profession in Ponca City Public Schools.
Just like to say thank you. Like you said, when I say we can do it, I have a crew of 13, and without them, a lot of things wouldn't be possible. I mean, I got 13 good people behind me, so it's them and me, so thank you very much.
Evans & Associates Enterprises, Inc., Ponca City Schools, friend of education. Evans & Associates Enterprises is truly a friend of education for the Ponca City Public Schools. Evans & Associate employees have always gone above and beyond what is needed or required to assist the Ponca City Public Schools in many, many ways, such as being a loyal pie partner for Lincoln Elementary School. Evans & Associates built the first walking track for any of our elementary schools at Lincoln. This was accomplished by fundraising efforts at Lincoln and cost-effective construction management by Evans & Associates. 3 other elementary schools raised money to install similar walking tracks, and Evans & Associates again delivered a quality job for a very reasonable price. They assisted our schools, but challenged them to come up with as much money as possible. Then Evans & Associates takes it from there. Playground repair and playground equipment fall material installation is another part of Evans & Associates' construction forte. Evans & Associates will periodically bid or quote a project for our district. And if they were successful in their quest, they would complete it in a timely manner with quality of workmanship as their #1 goal. Sometimes, while working on a project, there might be a particular segment of the work not specified or left off the work details. Evans & Associates would just do the work and state it needed to be done for the betterment of the project and the school district. Glenn Nichols, the company's representative on road projects, also assists the Ponca City Schools Maintenance Department in cleaning off the accumulated snow in our parking lots during the winter months. This is a huge job that takes its toll on equipment and requires a lot of time and effort to accomplish. Although they get paid for the work, Evans & Associates goes the extra mile to make sure it's done to our satisfaction and for the safety of the students and staff, and in a hurry, I might add. We get to work with Glenn Nichols, Sandy Hetherington, Rick Allensworth on many projects for the Ponca City Schools. They represent their company with pride for the community, pride for their school system, and pride in the work that they perform. We wish to thank Patty Evans, Linda Brown, Lee Evans, Bruce Evans, and Glenn Nichols of the Evans & Associates Enterprises, Inc. for their support of the Ponca City Public Schools and their community, and congratulate them on their selection as January 2012 Friend of Education.
Thank you very much, Brett, and to the board for this great honor. We're humbled. It's really nice to work with friends, and I've known Brett for a long, long time during the days of Dr. Serber, and that's how I got to know him, and we've really become close friends. So it's fun to do that. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.